Check engine light on? Take the guesswork out of your check engine light with O'Reilly Veriscan. It's free. Ask for O'Reilly Veriscan today.
O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly.
Save on your next oil change at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Choose Castrol Edge Full Synthetic Motor Oil to provide maximum performance and protection for your engine. Get a $15 gift card after rebate when you buy 5 quarts of Castrol Edge for $34.95. Plus 2 times O Rewards points. Offer valid in-store and online at O'ReillyAuto.com.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
It's your move, Tim Conley. Leader fan radio network.
And that's a fact.
And KFAN.com. I did not like my inflection on that open, but it's a new week. 1 minute, 45 seconds past the hour of 3 o'clock. Central Standard Time. We welcome you back. It's the Bumper to Bumper program, live, local, and I believe a full 3.5 hours today on a calm after the Snownomi Monday afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. My name is Dan Barreiro. I host the program. Guardsy's back from his West Coast sojourn, and we are delighted that you are along for the ride as well. Tomorrow, I think we're out at 6 for Minnesota Wild Hockey, correct?
Yes, sir.
So 3.5 today, 3 tomorrow. It is, of course, Super Bowl 59 week, and we will certainly dig deep to discuss the matchup and all the ramifications of it before this week is done. I promise you that. But early, as one might expect, I took sermons off. If I had known that the trade of the century was going to take place,
I wondered about that
on Saturday. I'd have worked it. There's no question, because part of the reason I didn't want to work it is it's the old cliche about the Super Bowl. The week before the Super Bowl, it's kind of abyss-like. There's not a lot to talk about. Now, there would have been a lot of pathos because the Timberwolves laid an egg against the wretched Washington Wizards. Don't tell me about how many players we had out. Don't even stoop to that level of desperation. And then the Golden Gopher Men's Club took it on the chin against last place Washington at home. So as it turns out, the snark factor would have been high for me, but
I was stunned you didn't just come in.
Swoop in and just basically elbow Sinekin out of the way.
Just say, thanks, Davey, but I got it.
And then
or maybe do worst case scenario 11-1.
Well, I could have done that.
Maybe
too.
Follow him on sermons.
And then there's the trade of the century, a trade that is hard to top. It can be topped, but probably not given how accomplished both players are, right? Bigger names have been traded. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has been traded, right? Wilt Chamberlain has been traded twice. There are a number of others that are significant names, but usually it's one team gets the megastar, the other team gets like 7 players and 7 draft choices, and you hope to put it together, right?
Yep.
This was 2 highly accomplished basketball players. There were other pieces ultimately that were involved. I think it ended up being a 3-team deal, and everybody's talking about it. It's a shocker in many levels. Primarily, the biggest level probably is how well kept the secret was. No one seemed to know. At least it hadn't leaked to anybody in terms of the major media jackals that we're aware of. There was really not much there certainly was no speculation. Well, there's rumors that Luka might be on the block, as astonishing as that sounds. This was pretty well kept, and then it exploded. And so it'll be a big part of our discussion today, including a first time we've had Mitch Lawrence on in forever, it appears. I don't even think we've had him on once this season until today.
That's probably right. This is usually when we start reintegrating him.
So Mitch will be with us at 3:30, and Johnny Athletic will join at 4:30, and that'll be a big part of that conversation as well, I'm sure. And I will tell you that the way I look at this deal, well, let me make this the toss-up question for consideration via the Bradshaw and Brian KFAN text line, because it's just fun. It's moot, but it's fun. 64686. If the Dallas Mavericks had called Tim Conley and said, we're not going to get into the reasons why, but we will offer Luka Doncic to you for Anthony Edwards. I don't even know if the money works because in the second apron, by the way, you can't aggregate. It's got to be 1-for-1. That's one of the limitations of being in the second apron.
Yep.
So I don't even know if it works, but let's just play the game for fun. And you could have done that. They're offering Luka Doncic, top 5 player right now, maybe the most skilled offensive player in the game, period, for your franchise, the guy you've identified as your franchise, very popular, Anthony Edwards. Would you entertain it if it actually could have taken place?
I would entertain it. My initial reaction is I'd probably say no eventually, but that's why I'd probably be a bad general manager because I'm too emotional about things. But how do you not entertain it? Because when he's right and when he's good, and that's most of the time, even though he's had some injuries.
Especially against us.
We know, especially, he clearly likes shooting at Target Center.
Not as much in Boston.
In late moments.
But against us.
Target Center, he's very comfortable.
Correct.
You have to entertain it. You have to entertain it, and you have to think about it.
I agree.
100%. I don't know if I'd eventually get to that point. I'd want to know some stuff.
I get it. Ant's more of a two-way player.
Yeah. When he wants to be.
But their ages aren't that different.
No, he's 2 years older than he is. Or 3, whatever it is.
Here's the way I look at this deal. I'm in the group that believes absolutely positively that Dallas feels like it knows something.
Yep.
About Luka. Is it not taking care of himself? Never been a big priority for him. Although, I got to be honest with you. Based on the reports, before I actually saw him get off the plane,
the private plane,
I had been led to believe he was going to look like Jiggly Boy. He didn't look that enormous to me. Now, maybe he's out of shape. I don't know.
Maybe they did something with the camera.
But you have to believe, everybody knows that the extension he was in line for was going to be, basically by the end of the extension he was in line for, he was going to be making $100 million a year at the end of it. And that they came to the conclusion that not going to work. We don't trust him. We think when his body goes bad, he's going to fall off the edge of a cliff. They must believe that. On the other hand, if I'm the Los Angeles Lakers, it doesn't stop me from doing it. If you're the Lakers, I think in this opportunity, by the way, an opportunity in which you give up a really good player who misses more games than Luka, and really not that much else.
The return is laughable.
Exactly.
For a top 5 player like Luka.
If you're the Lakers, even if you are concerned about, well, why would he be available at this price? I am in the group that would say 100 out of 100 times you have to do it. And it has to do with that market. It has to do with, manifest destiny when you're the number of trades the Lakers have made, obviously. It drives people crazy, the number of big-name players. I think you absolutely have to do it if you're the Lakers. And yet I can see, well, the Mavericks must. And for today, the Mavericks are probably better balanced as a team. Although I know there's some basketball insiders, I'm going to ask Mitch this at 3:30, who believe that, who is the, what's the name of the player that the Mavericks got in return for Doncic?
Anthony Davis?
Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
If I told you I have a problem with names. Anthony Davis wants to play power forward, will be able to play power forward in Dallas, but there are a lot of people who feel that's not where he's at his best offensively, even if he doesn't believe it. So that's another whole issue. I'll ask the basketball people how they feel about that. They might be a better team right now. They're certainly a better defensive team, for sure. On the other hand, are you comfortable giving the keys to Kyrie again? Because Kyrie's been on his best behavior there, but now he's in a different spot. He's really in the catbird seat again.
He's
Is he
the
not?
alpha, probably.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So does that make him go in a pear-shaped direction?
It's a variable.
It's a variable you have to think about.
Yes, it's definitely a wild card.
And people are saying, well, the Lakers are foolish if they think they're going to make a run this year. I don't think the Lakers have any thought of making a run this year.
Not really.
Now, if they get something going, they'll take it as a bonus.
Yep.
But this is obviously about the future. It is about LeBron James is on borrowed time, right? Even though he still has some games where you go, my God, he's on borrowed time. So now this is the guy who, LeBron can hand the keys to this guy. And by the way, I think LeBron is going to be perfectly satisfied deferring to
Yes.
Luka from day one.
I agree.
I don't think he's going to have any problem doing that. Now, the problem is they both need the ball a decent amount, but LeBron has played more off the ball lately. I think he's versatile enough to do it, but this isn't about the present. This is literally about, we're set. If we can convince Luka to, lay off the beers every once in a while, and occasionally go to a fat farm. I don't think we call them that anymore because it's not politically correct. We could be set for another 7-8 years, and if we build around him the right way, we're going to have it. We will once again be the kings of the National Basketball Association, right? So I absolutely do it if I'm the Lakers. I don't even think it's anything again, especially considering what you had to give up. And Anthony Davis is having a great year, but Anthony Davis still is not a guy. I don't think he can't be your best player on a championship team. I don't think at this point. He misses a bunch of games. He misses more games than Luka, does he not?
I think so. Historically, yeah. There's a reason why they call him street clothes on the TNT show.
That's it. That's the Charles Barkley bit, right?
Yep.
And he still has occasionally those games where he's averaging like 25. I think he's averaging like 25 and 12, where he goes 9 points, 5 rebounds, and you go, well, you're not Rudy Gobert, are you? I mean, that should never happen if you're Anthony Davis, right? He can get lost sometimes. So I'm as aroused by it as anybody, just because it's so unusual. It's so stunning and so historic and unexpected and unprecedented and fascinating for, I think, some of the reasons we've already laid out. And it'll be even more fascinating to see how this thing goes. But if history is any indication, it's going to go great for the Lakers.
Yeah.
It always does.
Yeah. That's where I am.
Yeah. I mean, Kareem, I guess I go all the way back to Kareem. They find a way to steal Kobe the day of the draft, right?
Yep.
Shaquille.
Yep.
Even Pau Gasol, who's on a lesser level, but he was vital.
They needed him.
Absolutely needed them.
Yep.
And I remember talking about that at the time going, they got Pau Gasol for what?
I know. It's infuriating.
It's what encourages the notion that the league is fixed.
Yeah.
That there are conspiracies, that the Lakers always end up somehow with Wilt Chamberlain. They got Wilt and won another title. In fact, at the time, had the greatest season in NBA history. They went 68-13 that year. So, and the list goes on and on and on, and you say they have everything and we have nothing. So I'm waiting for Conley. I want to know, is there going to be a counter, an answer from Tim Conley before the deadline, which I believe is the 6th, right?
Yeah, it's Thursday.
2:00 Central Time, I think, on Thursday. 2:00 Central Time. I'm not hearing much. Are you?
No, but we didn't hear anything about this trade either.
It's a great point.
The Fan wants to give you a shot to put a grand in your hand. It's our national cash contest, and the first keyword of the week
point
on Bumper to Bumper is credit. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword credit.
Let's come back and we'll get some text going, some controversy early, and then we'll prepare for our guy Mitch Lawrence at 3:30. Bumper to Bumper is the name of the program. We are on until 6:30 this evening. Joined by Mitch Lawrence in about 15 minutes. Johnny Athletic at 4:30. Luigi, I think, is scheduled for, is it tomorrow or Wednesday we had to move him to?
He's going to be Wednesday.
Wednesday.
He can't do tomorrow.
That's it. So we had to move him either today or Wednesday.
Correct.
And there is some hockey to get to as well before this program is done. I'm not sure if Fallness is going to be pleased what we're going to have to say today about his favorite hockey team, but we're going to address it. It sounds like Mike in Fergus Falls can't get enough of this trade of the century discussion. Shoot, I was looking forward to listening today. You're going to talk about a basketball trade for more than 30 seconds? I can hear the clicks of the radios turning off right now. What can we say to Mike? We love him. We love having him as a listener.
Yeah, it's important.
There are some people interested in this deal. And that means there's going to be a lot of discussion about a trade that this particular league, and really most leagues, has never really seen when you factor in the quality of, as I said, players on both ends of the deal. It's confounding. Maybe he's a hockey guy. Like I said, be careful what you wish for there. Or maybe he just, I'll say again, no one is obligated to favor what we are talking about at any given moment. But I would hope they keep their minds open to the possibility that just because they are not interested in this particular subject, that we, over a period of years, haven't come to get a pretty good feel for what the broadest number of individuals who listen to this show might be interested in. Red Rover from Red Wing. Aloha, Dan. Yes, we want Tim Conley to magically improve the Wolves with the trade deadline looming. The bigger question, though, is will Kwesi shock the NFL world by trading for Myles Garrett?
Apparently he's available.
In Cleveland. He is demanding a deal.
Yeah.
Before you say we don't have the capital, Cleveland has an albatross, Watson, and no quarterback of the present or future. We may have a piece, McCarthy, to use as a chip. Not saying I'd do it, but it's intriguing. Red Rover from Red Wing. There's no chance we're trading McCarthy.
No.
I don't think.
No.
And we may regret it someday because we don't know what he's going to be, but I don't think there's any chance this team is moving on from J.J. McCarthy, no matter what we do next to him at the quarterback position, right?
I don't see that happening. But I didn't see, as I said at the end of the segment, what night was that? Friday night or Saturday night when the trade was dropped?
The trade was dropped,
I think Friday night.
Yeah, it was.
I don't even know.
No, it was Saturday night.
Was it?
Yeah, it had to be. Yeah, because it was. I got a text like early Sunday from Laval bitter that I wasn't going to be on. I said, I'm sorry.
You could have called him and given him your thoughts.
I could have. That's true.
Because I sat there, as you know, I was in Los Angeles, about to go to bed. And I think the best, explanation of this trade or how crazy it is that everybody that saw the Shams Charania tweet, everybody, not just rubes like me, but other fellow NBA insiders and people at ESPN, even internally, assumed that he had been hacked.
That's right.
Not that Luka and Davis may have been traded for one another, but that it seemed like such a paltry sum to give up for a guy who hasn't played since he left the Timberwolves game Christmas Day, but a guy who brought a team to the finals with Kyrie Irving a year ago, has been to the Western Conference Finals, is a top 3 player at worst right now in the league, is what people think. When he's going, they think he's, some people think he's the second best player. I was stunned. And the reaction, or what you talked about in the first segment, was almost my immediate reaction, where I haven't even texted my good friend Mike Trudell.
I think he was on with PA today.
He was, and I didn't listen because it's getting really annoying that it just always works out for them. Like this deal works out.
It's uncanny.
For nobody. Nobody else has this kind of luck. Nobody else could have taken on D'Angelo Russell like multiple times over the years. Maybe that was a deal they made with the basketball gods. The basketball gods said, if you just hang with D'Lo for a couple of years, we'll let you trade him the second time, midway through the second or third year, and then we'll reward you. Like, this deal does not even make any sense that they didn't shop him. They didn't call anybody else. They called one specific team because Nico and Pelinka are tight and said, what do you got? And not only did they get him for a 31-year-old center who's good, but not a guy, like you said, that you can build around when LeBron's done. And now their clock has just been restarted. And they'll go find some cheap rim protector to make a good run at it this year. But it's infuriating because what chance do the rest of us have in the cornfields?
Zero.
We just don't have a chance. And that's what's disheartening about the whole thing.
Again, I'm old enough to remember when the Milwaukee Bucks traded Kareem Abdul-Jabbar to the Lakers. He spent 6 seasons in Milwaukee, 3 league MVPs, 2 scoring titles, NBA Rookie of the Year, and then won a title paired with Oscar Robertson towards the end of his career. And Abdul-Jabbar basically, he demanded that deal. He made it a cultural thing. Nothing against the Bucks, nothing against Milwaukee, but I just don't. I mean, I need someplace else. And I think he said I'm willing to go to L.A., New York, or Washington. And he ends up going for a bunch of pieces, a couple of decent players, but still nothing. And he won, was it 5 more titles? I think he won.
Yeah, because the Lakers won 5.
I think he won 5 more titles with Los Angeles, especially once Magic got there. People do forget. The San Francisco Warriors traded Wilt to the 76ers first, but eventually the 76ers trade Chamberlain to the Lakers in what year was it? I think it was 1968. For, good players, Jerry Chambers and Archie Clark was a really good scorer, but it's Wilt Chamberlain, for God's sake. And sure enough, that was probably the first super team. He joins up with Jerry West, Elgin Baylor. They end up winning a title. They had I think the still all-time consecutive victory record, 33 straight games, 71-72. They won 68 games that year and won the championship in 1972 as well. Remember that, of course, Shaq got traded as well to the Lakers. Now, eventually the Lakers traded Shaq as well, right?
Yeah.
That did happen.
Well, he signed as a free agent.
Well, that's true. Yeah. That's right, he did, yeah.
But that was like thievery because the Magic thought he was signed and locked in, and Jerry West, last minute, came in and somehow got him.
And again, Kobe was a draft day trade, right?
Yep.
With Charlotte.
Yep. They traded Vlade Divac.
I mean, just think of those names.
I know. I walked by all their statues the other day.
They're going to have to build a bigger concourse because they're running out of statue room, aren't they?
Chick Hearn-Way.
Will there be room for a Luka statue?
Chick Hearn-Way is, well, it depends. Is he 270 or 230? Probably 230 by the time he plays for L.A., but Chick Hearn-Way or Chick Hearn Court, whatever it's called, is very, very busy right now.
Yeah. It's a beautiful place, isn't it? Well, you sent a photo to me of one, the Magic shot.
I went there just to take a picture of Magic.
It's very, very good. All right, let's do this. Let's stay on schedule. We're going to get kind of the local perspective on both the Wolves, what they might be up to in the trade market, and, Johnny's reaction to the deal of the century as well. That's at 4:30. But how about a national perspective? And really, to a certain extent, a Metroplex perspective, because Mitch Lawrence has worked in both Dallas and New York. He's now residing back in Dallas, so he can give us a sense of the public reaction to the news, which has not been favorable at all. In fact, I think the general manager of the Mavericks is under armed guard right now, and I'm half kidding, half not, sadly enough.
Well, Luka was their soul.
Exactly it. Yeah. And we'll see what Mitch thinks of it from a pound for pound standpoint, what he makes of the deal itself. Because I think you can convince yourself that it's not a bad deal for Dallas right now, but how do you give up a top 5 player who is as skilled as Luka is at the age of 25 years old? It's fairly unprecedented because most of the other players are talking about, I think Kareem was either 26 or 28 when he got dealt. In any case, Mitch Lawrence, he's got a good finger on the pulse of NBA history, and he can put this trade in some perspective in that regard as well. We'll chat with Mitch, I should say, next. Gargi, refresh my memory on Sirius XM, the NBA channel. Who co-hosts their morning show?
That isn't that
Brian Scalabrine.
That's your guy, Frank Isola, who won't come on the show anymore because you burned him.
That's where I'm going.
And Brian Scalabrine.
I may still be dead to Isola, but fortunately for us, I'm not quite yet dead to our next guest, Mitch Lawrence, kind enough to join us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. I did not know that he still had a problem. That Frank still had a problem with you. I'll have to talk to him about.
Well, I don't even know if I don't even think he thinks about me, but he has never acknowledged me since that. Like 2 years ago, I allegedly burned him.
He doesn't even know Dan exists anymore.
I think he thinks I'm dead.
We had a comment dalliance with him.
Yeah, he's been known to hold a grudge or two. So
yes,
I'm not surprised.
He most assuredly has. Well, it's good to hear your voice, man. It's been too long. We're going to start ratcheting this thing up. Vikings, as you may know, had a great regular season, and then when it went bad, it went bad. It went bad fast, too. It really did.
Oh, man.
What are you going to do?
You guys are too much. What are we going to talk about? What could you be possibly calling about today?
We're talking about here's my hypothetical, because I don't even know if financially this would work, but let's play around with this. If the Dallas Mavericks had called Tim Conley and said, we are willing today to offer you Luka Doncic for Anthony Edwards, should Tim Conley have said yes?
Oh, boy. Well, I would think Dallas would actually want more. You got to remember, Luka's 5 years in a row All-NBA. Plus, he's third in the MVP voting.
He's 25.
So, right? I understand.
He's not even that old. He's not even that old. No.
Difference between. I understand. Listen, I thought that here's what I think. I think the Mavericks should have called up Milwaukee and asked for Giannis Antetokounmpo.
Yeah, I know. It's
because you know what? Milwaukee's in a situation where, as we've known over the last, ever since they've won a title, Milwaukee hasn't done much. Giannis has made a bunch of bad moves, and the clock might be running on him in Milwaukee.
That's true.
Just like the Mavericks thought the clock was running on Luka Doncic, and they didn't want to pay him $350 million, from my understanding. And this is the interesting thing: is a lot of people either forget or don't remember. Mark Cuban really is no longer in charge. The Adelson family,
yes,
paid Mark Cuban a lot of money a couple of Decembers ago. He gave up control of the team in terms of everyday stuff. I think he sold 75% of the team. And so one of the members of their family, he was the one who signed off on this deal. I don't think Cuban would have ever done that.
I agree.
But I think he also was the guy who Nico Harrison probably said, it's going to cost you $350 million to keep Luka Doncic. And he probably said the Adelson members probably said, no, we're not going to do that. That's what you hear anyway.
Sure.
So it's very interesting because, the Lakers obviously will do that. But getting back to your original point, no, I don't think I would not do Anthony Edwards.
I think I would. And now the age difference is Ant's going to turn 24 in August, I think. And Luka's going to turn 26 in
a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So there's a bit of a gap. Luka, well, let's talk about it this way. You're still in the Metroplex. You're still in the Dallas-Fort Worth area.
Yes.
So capture the mood there. I mean, I assume there's a lot of fear and loathing. What are you sensing? What are you hearing?
Well, first of all, we're still in cowboy country, and people are still irate about Brian Schottenheimer getting the head coaching job.
Yes.
Okay?
Right.
I mean, Cowboy fans were going apoplectic, going nuts when Jerry Jones took his sweet time and hired a guy who a lot of fans said, you know what, is he better than Mike McCarthy? What has he done? He's never been a head coach before. In addition to all the other things that Jerry doesn't do, then so you have that, and then shortly thereafter, as people are still on fire about that, you get, the most popular map, next to Dirk Nowitzki and the guy who's supposed to take them to the promised land, and the guy who 7 months ago took them to the NBA Finals, along with obviously Kyrie, and he had help, but, the main player down here, and all of a sudden, he's a Los Angeles Laker. And, Maverick fans are like Timberwolves fans, Portland fans, Suns fans, Oklahoma City fans. Everybody hates the Lakers. What are you helping the Lakers for?
Right.
So here it is a state of people are angry. People are really frustrated. And, they don't even think that Anthony Davis is going to help this team. And I think Anthony Davis will, provided, of course, like, for the Lakers, Luka has to get healthy and stay healthy.
Yep.
I mean, Anthony Davis is a nice fit as long as Kyrie Irving is invested and committed and as long as everybody stays healthy. They may be a little bit of a better team.
Yep.
Right.
I think that's possible.
But,
yeah.
Luka Doncic, everybody, he's regarded, everybody thought, Dan, after last June, what he did, and they got smoked in the finals. We all know that.
Yeah.
But just getting there and how dominant he was as an offensive force, people here were thinking, you know what, we're going to be going at least to 2 or 3 more finals with he and Kyrie, and then we'll see what happens. But so that's why everybody's mad. Everybody is angry.
Do you believe? So is it? Because there's a lot of possibilities here. It could be the contract that the big extension. I've heard a couple other people write. Well, they're not even convinced that he was going to sign with them at all.
Right.
Is there any validity to that? Because that's a very different story than they didn't want to sign him to what, like you said, it was going to be unprecedented $350 million deal.
I actually watched the pregame yesterday before they got smoked in Cleveland. They got blown out. Jason Kidd, Nico Harrison, the GM who pulled this off, sat down and for the first time and to talk about it. And Harrison made some references to that. There was a suggestion at one point. You'd have to dredge up the clip of him, but I think it was, he kind of opened. It was kind of a question as to whether, we'll be in a situation where we could offer it, but will he take it? I'm kind of paraphrasing in a way. And that kind of was like, and you've heard in the past that, is Luka really committed to Dallas? Does he really want to be in this mark? You've heard some things, not to say there's anything with any real validity, but you always heard this rumor about, will he stay here as Nowitzki did and be a Maverick for life type thing? So anytime there's a question about that, you always have to think that might be it, along with the fact that, he's a guy who's been around a long time for Dallas. And yes, he is. There's always a constant with him about being out of shape, lack of conditioning, lack of professionalism. Has never said no to last call at his favorite watering hole, stuff like that.
Yes.
That's followed him around. And so, and here's the other thing that I look at. And I spent a lot of time around Jason Kidd when he was a player taking the New Jersey Nets to back-to-back finals 25 odd years ago when they got smoked by the Lakers and they got beat by the Spurs. But he took them there. He was unbelievable. And the way he played.
Yes.
Get the ball, spread the ball around, be the facilitator, ball movement, run the court. And I always thought he's coaching like a guy who doesn't do anything that he did. He's coaching a guy who pounds the ball, dribbles 8 seconds, then he'll look to set up, and it's all slow motion. It's all walk the ball at his own pace up the court. And I always sat there, and I've never talked to Jason about this, but I'm thinking it must drive him nuts at points to think, this is not the way to be successful here, even though the guy 7 months ago did get you to a final. So I always thought, if push came to shove and they didn't like the way Luka handled things and there's a lack of professionalism, he's not paying, he's constantly on officials unlike anybody else and, lagging behind plays because he's got to make his point to the refs. And, there might be a point where they just pull the plug and say, we got to do better than this. And that's the point they reached.
I think it's an excellent observation that everything that he, as good as he is, and I think he's a top 5 player, everything he does, including whining the officials, is the antithesis of Jason Kidd. It really is as a player.
Yeah.
And because he just doesn't, he's bored with that stuff. So I could see where he might be willing to say, yeah, let's mix it up a little bit. On the other hand, I said earlier, if you're the Lakers, I think you have to do this. I think even if there are risks involving the stuff you just laid out, I think you're almost, especially at this price, I think you're almost obligated to make this jump, don't you?
There's no question. And, we all thought, you think a guy's almost untradeable. Listen, Shaquille O'Neal got traded. Yeah. Kareem got traded. Wilt got traded.
All to the Lakers, by the way. They all to the
Right.
Yeah.
But and the thing that kind of is strange is that nobody thought. You thought you'd get it for a king's ransom for a guy like Luka. Yes. And they obviously didn't get that. Looks like they took a lot less. Although Anthony Davis can be a tremendous second player on a winning team, as he showed with LeBron. You're right. I agree. The Lakers now know the clock is running out on LeBron James. How many more years can he give you? How many more years can he, he put on a great performance at Madison Square Garden on Saturday night. He can't do that 2 or 3 times a week. He can do that once every 15 days, maybe.
Right.
Because of his age and the tread off the tire. So you're always, the Lakers, we all know this in their history, they're always looking for that next guy, the transcendent player who they're going to get like Shaquille O'Neal, or they're going to get like Kareem in a trade, free agency for sure. Shaquille. And who's that going to play? A lot of us thought it might be Giannis, who has his eyes on LA if things don't work out. It would have to be somebody who really moves the needle. Well, this moves the needle. And you're right. As much baggage as Luka has, he is a top offensive player. He is a dynamic. He's been look at the stuff. Look at what he's averaged and done on the court, being out of shape all this time. It's like ridiculous. Yeah. So yeah, I think the big thing for LeBron now, I don't think they can ask LeBron. They're going to still ask LeBron, obviously, to get this team as far as they can. The big lift for LeBron is trying to show to Luka how to be a professional, which I'm sure for LeBron might be a little bit beneath him. But I think that's what he has to do. Is that
great point?
He has to get through to this guy because Jason Kidd obviously couldn't, in terms of how you conduct yourself as a professional. And these are the things you have to do differently if you want to become a championship player, because now the life you're leading off the court, the injuries, the nightlife, etc., that's not helping you do it. As a matter of fact, that's hurting you. That's preventing you from doing what I have done. Will Luka listen to LeBron James? That's a good question. I don't know.
Mitch Lawrence has covered the National Basketball Association for decades as an ink-stained wretch. and also now on the radio, including a lot of time on Sirius XM, the NBA channel, joining us this afternoon on the Fan. What's your theory on why Nico didn't, even if he knew it would open the door to more, rumors, shop him, given, obviously, I got to believe, the level of interest there would be, even with some of the Luka warts? Why did he take the approach he did?
See, I'm of the opinion, because Jason Kidd, and I know Jason Kidd claims he didn't hear about this the 11th hour, but I think that they had Anthony Davis in mind from the start. Yeah, listen, like I said, should he have called Milwaukee? Yeah, and I think, Milwaukee would have thought about it. Should he have called Boston? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
How much would Boston love to have a guy like Luka Doncic be a Celtic? And, you're going to have to give up Jason Tatum in pieces. Well, you know what? You may want to do that.
Yep.
I mean, you could call Denver up. I mean, listen, that's the type of player Luka is. But I think that these guys had Anthony Davis in mind, because what they said at the press conference yesterday and what they've been talking about is that defense wins championships. As much as we look at the NBA today and go, you're out of your mind. It's three-point shooting. It's spreading the court. It's running. It's pace. It's all this stuff. That's what he believes in, and Jason Kidd does too. And so I think for all the people who just say, well, you know what, they could have this guy, that guy, I think they were honing in right away on Anthony Davis and looking at him. Jason Kidd, of course, was in Los Angeles, coached him with the Lakers. Nico, everybody knows what Anthony Davis can do at the offensive and defensive end. And I think the way, you got to remember too, last year, after, starting in January, once they made some big trades and they had Lively, they got Gafford, Washington, they had one of the best defenses in the league, despite having Doncic and Irving, who are terrible defenders.
That's true.
So they have the coaching system in place. They have the type of coaches who can get them to be a very good defensive team with guys who don't play great defense. Now they have eliminated their worst defender, a guy who sometimes you're playing 4-on-5, and they've brought in Anthony Davis, who can be a defensive player of the year. So I just tend to think, they felt Kyrie is going to be 33. Anthony Davis is going to be 32. They're kind of on the same trajectory. Both guys are big-time players. They've played in the playoffs. We know about their drawbacks, but if they can stay healthy and stay on the court, we may be in a situation where we can compete with Oklahoma City this year and everybody else. Minnesota, get back to another finals. I think on paper, as crazy as it sounds, I think they have as good or a better chance than having Luka with this team because, I think Anthony Davis kind of does things better at that defensive end that they want to do than obviously Luka can.
Does this at all change the Kyrie calculus in that I feel like Kyrie has been a pretty good soldier there since going to Dallas, but now that he kind of becomes the guy, right, at least in the perimeter, he becomes the guy. Right. Is there a chance that he reverts or he ends up becoming more of a pain in the butt now that Luka's out of the way?
So you raise a great point. I mean, whenever he's been cast as the number one guy, it's been a disaster. The Boston years are the biggest example of that. And so now this was the Luka Doncic show. The co-star, the secondary guy was Kyrie, and that was an accepted. You had that role. Now it gets elevated. It's he and Anthony Davis. Neither guy's an alpha. Kyrie's led the wrong way in the past. Could he go off the reservation? Sure, he's got that history. I mean, the great thing is that it seems like he works really well with Jason Kidd. It seems like Kidd has the knack of instead of telling him what to do, I've heard Kidd talk about this, Dan, is that instead of saying this is what you should do, Kyrie, or this is what you should do, Luka, he takes the approach of, well, when I played and I was, an MVP candidate, I did it this way. Might want to try it that way. Not exactly ordering the guy or basically, pushing him to do it, but this is what I did. And I think he has the gravitas with a Kyrie Irving because, listen, since Kyrie's been here, he has been tremendous in terms of avoiding all that stuff that had been in his past where teams were leery of bringing him on because you just didn't know when he was going to ghost the team, when he was going to be unhappy, when he was going to, take a couple of weeks off. So something here has worked. It's got to. I have to credit a lot to Jason Kidd.
Yeah, right.
I think also the thing here too is that Kyrie, I think he's just more comfortable maybe in his own skin post COVID and all that craziness. But now it goes back to, okay, what are you going to do with Anthony Davis? Because now there's going to be a lot of pressure on him and Anthony Davis. All right, you guys, this team made this deal to trade off a MVP, a guy who's going to win an MVP and maybe some championships down the line for Lakers. What are you guys going to do?
Let's finish up with, of course, the trade deadline, I believe, is Thursday. I want to say 2:00 Central Time. The Wolves, I don't think, are likely to do anything, but of course, we've been surprised before. Randall is the name that comes up. I don't know what the market is for Randall. I don't even know if they necessarily want to move on from him, but obviously, he can walk after this season. He's got a contract option that's his option for next season. We have not talked in a while, so give me your best sense from afar of whether you feel like the Wolves are kind of floating. They're not horrible, obviously. They've had some stretches lately where it looks like they're figuring some stuff out, and then they just lose to the Wizards. Now they had a bunch of people hurt, but it was a home game against the Wizards, which you should still win, even if you're putting out a bunch of bench players. So are we spinning our wheels? Do we already have evidence that the trade was not what the Wolves hoped it could be, or is it too early to give up on Randall being the right fit here?
I don't know when the last time we talked was. This was pre-trade. I did not like this trade from Minnesota. I mean, I sat there and I was like, they're just giving it, what was it, this amount of time with Karl Anthony Towns and Edwards for work and Gobert. I knew the Knicks. We all knew the Knicks were one day going to try to get him. Mm-hmm. But I was like, wow, I can't believe. And part of it was I like Karl Anthony Towns a lot. I like him, and I know he's got flaws, but I like him a lot more than Julius Randle.
Yeah.
And I know you got DiVincenzo in the trade, and Minnesota had a thing about him, and I understood that. I was just floored. And now when I watch Minnesota, they miss Karl Anthony Towns.
They do.
I don't think there's any other way to put it. The times that I've seen them play, he's a better second option and a better fit to me with Anthony Edwards than Julius Randle. And I've never been a huge Julius Randle guy. I think he's very good. I think the 1 year he was all NBA, I consider that a real outlier. I don't consider him, I just consider Towns the much better player and a bigger force and a guy who defenses really have to deal with. And he's, of course, played lights out in New York. So sure. I don't know what they're going to do, but it looks like they need to do something, and it looks like Denver needs to do something because Oklahoma City and it looks great. Now, listen, there are a lot of people who are picking them to go to the finals and conference finals. I still have my doubts. I just don't know if they have a second scorer. If some team comes in with a great defensive plan and locks down on SGA, and he has struggled in games, if he does, who can they turn to in the fourth quarter of playoff games? Who's that second option? I'm not sold on Jalen Williams. I'm not sold on anybody else. And I know they haven't had Big Chet out there and, Hartenstein. But, the West is so super competitive, it's like the Wolves need to do something. What that is, who that is, I have no idea.
Yeah, that's the issue, 100%. Zach just texted, what would it take to trade for Cat? I think that ship might have sailed, right? I don't think Tibbs is going to say, you want him back? We'll give him back to you. I think that's over.
They will burn the garden down. They love. Now listen, we have to see how the Knicks do in the playoffs.
Good point. That's
the whole bottom line to this deal. The regular season does not matter. We have to see how Brunson and Towns deliver, if they can, against Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, against, Giannis and Damian Lillard. Cleveland's a factor this year more than any. That's the surprise of the year, obviously. So we'll see. But nothing's going to be. We're not going to learn anything about the Knicks until, May, and then we're going to find out if Karl Anthony Towns can deliver in the pressure of the Mecca of New York. We'll see about that.
Yeah, that's fair, 100%. Because if you go back to last year, he was very good until the Dallas series. He was not that good. On the other hand, Luka was great until the finals, and then he wasn't very good. Doesn't mean you necessarily give up on him, but that's when the story ultimately, I guess, of this deal is going to be told. I don't think there's as much of a market for Randall. I don't. Now Miami has always had some interest in him apparently, but you're not going to, they're not going to trade Jimmy. They're not going to bring Jimmy Butler back here. That would be a disaster. So, I don't know if there's even any other options, that are out there when it comes to Julius Randle.
No, and it looks like Jimmy Butler does not, he's told Golden State he's not going to sign extension. It's amazing how all this
So
stuff
what does he
gets
want? Mitch, in all seriousness,
what tampering?
What does he want then?
He wants to get a maximum extension beyond what he's going to make this year,
right.
or the $52 million. I mean, it's totally absurd, a guy at his age, but that's what he's looking for. And the word is that I heard today on the starting lineup, you mentioned the show I'm on sometimes with Frank and Scal. Scal reported that he had heard that Jimmy Butler has told that Phoenix has already given indication that they are willing to extend Jimmy Butler. So to me, that all signs point now to Bradley Beal's going to have to, he'll end up in Miami. It's going to be Jimmy Butler in Phoenix with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker.
Well, but didn't Golden State say they would do it? Or are you saying they're saying they would extend him, but not at the price that he wants to be extended at? Is that the distinction?
I don't think what I've heard is that Jimmy Butler has told Golden State, "I'm not doing an extension." There.
Okay, all right. Well, he's
and I'm not even. I didn't even know what Golden State has to give up. I mean, but Jimmy Butler is player empowerment. He's wielding a lot of power here, and apparently he's sending they know at Golden State don't waste their time trying to trade for him because he doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, he's lost to me, and I used to be the Guards and I are the two of the biggest Buckets fans out there. But he's totally mishandled everything here, and he's been just. He looks like a clown this whole thing. And he'll get to Phoenix probably. But, probably true.
And you know what? It's amazing. But Matt Ishbia, the new owner in Phoenix, apparently is paying everybody. So I might call him up and get a new contract.
Well, to that end, his brother is apparently sniffing around buying the Minnesota Twins. So we could have an Ishbia here too. How about that?
Well, hope he's got deep pockets.
He does. Oh, they got like. I think they've got like trillions. Forget billionaire. I think they're trillionaires.
Yeah. And speaking of which ownership, I'm going to ask you a question. I talked about the Adelsons and the Mavericks and all that. Do we have an owner who's owning the Timberwolves these days?
Well,
enlighten me.
It's funny. It's funny you bring that up. In fact, Johnny Krasinski, who covers the club locally for The Athletic, is going to join us at 4:30. He has said this is the week. Basically, within 1 week, the ruling from the arbitrators is supposed to come down, and it all depends on who you talk to. I mean, there's just as many people saying it's going to be Taylor as are saying it's going to be the new guy. So it's very much up. But finally, I think we're going to get that resolved.
You're talking about A-Rod, new guy, right? He's still in the mix.
A-Rod and Mark Laurie, that is correct. Who's the former mayor?
Michael Bloomberg.
They got Michael. Talk about deep pockets. Now they got Bloomberg in with them.
Yeah.
So
they got. If Bloomberg's in, they're going to win.
That's the way
I look at it.
Well,
he can't lose to Glenn Taylor.
You're probably right.
1 week from today is the deadline.
But it could come sooner.
Yep.
But it's 1 week from today.
Adam Silver, can we please get a resolution?
Maybe Isola will have you on this week to talk about it.
Oh,
the
perfect.
Resolution.
There it is.
Maybe get that done.
Hey, mention to Frank, I'd be more than willing to come on.
I'll float it out.
Awesome.
I'll float it out to him.
Thank you. You still haven't lost a step. Thanks, man. Be good. Mitch Lawrence, one of the best, man. One of our favorite. In fact, I had a hockey guy text and say, I don't even like pro basketball, and I love when Mitch Lawrence is on. That's the beauty of good guests. It doesn't matter what they're talking about. They're just fun and opinionated and interesting and insightful. Top of the hour break. Speaking of hockey, we're going to talk some National Hockey League stuff. We're going to talk some Minnesota Wild stuff that makes absolutely zero sense to me. And then, as I mentioned, Johnny Athletic at 4:30.